on one hand, advocating international law very strongly on one side, on one aspect, and then refusing to recognize it on another, which, when you think about it, is even more primordial because it concerns human rights. It concerns the rights of people, no, and their safety, no, and their protection, no, and the redress of grievances committed against them as a people. So dapat lang, no. So it's good that the DOJ, in a way, is being very ano tawag dito, very fair about it, no. They know the ramifications and the implications, no, of this very difficult issue, and I guess that's why they came up. They as reported, they're coming up with legal briefs to apprise the leadership of what the scenarios are and what are the options,
And
basically.
potentially rejoining the International Criminal Court. This is what we're hearing from the news right now. Before I talk about Professor J dealing with Robin Hood Padilla and Dr. J Batumbakal talking about the UNCLOS and China, can we go a little bit, rewind natin ng konti? Kasi Jay, I remember in one of our conversations, which I think did very well, especially among loyalists yata for understandable reason, we discussed how Marcos Sr. Administration played a very important role in bringing smaller archipelagic countries together so that international law is on our side. Can you give us a little bit background on that? Because our current president happens to have the same name, and it's a namesake son. I just want to say that, you know, even the Marcoses have a tradition of having the international law on the side of weaker countries.
Yes, and that advocacy is what resulted in a major change in international law. Before UNCLOS, there was no law on the concept of the archipelagic state, no, or archipelagic waters, or the unity of land and water as a nation, no. Without that advocacy, the Philippines would basically be just a scattered collection of islands, and all of our inter-island waters beyond 12 nautical miles, which includes the Sulu Sea and large parts of the waters, say, between Luzon and the Visayas Islands, no, they would be high seas, meaning they would be open to all nations. We would have no exclusive rights or authorities over anything that happens within those inter-island waters, no. So the Philippines took the correct position in advocating the recognition of our sovereignty over these inter-island waters. And it nudged international law in the direction that we now find, in the direction of where we find ourselves now, which is that other nations recognize our sovereignty over these inter-island waters. And in addition, they also recognize that we're not a scattered set of islands, no, separated by high seas, but we're one political and geographic unit. We're an archipelagic state, no? And it is on the basis of that unified entity that we now measure as well all the maritime zones, which accord to us vast resources. No? So yeah, I mean, that is definitely a contribution of the Philippines to international law in general. And that's on account of the advocacies that the previous governments, yes, his predecessors, his father, essentially, as well as the administrations before him, because remember, essentially the advocacy for this started 1956, and it was basically continued, no. So it's a running thread throughout our foreign policy from the 50s onwards until the 80s and now and up to now. Yeah.
So you're saying it's in the DNA of our Philippine diplomacy, right? Fighting for international law, because international law is the best equalizer pagdating sa defending Philippines. Again, I think both of us admit that we have our concerns with, you know, the economic legacy, the human right legacy of the Marcos regime, the Marcos Sr. regime. But I think on foreign policy, all of us are in agreement that he indeed had very significant contribution for our national interest, particularly in West Philippine Sea, particularly bringing smaller countries together. And that's why, you know, in a way, I'm not surprised that the son is moving in the right direction, at least on the foreign policy front. Mahabang usapan yung mga domestic politics. We can talk about that in a separate platform. Now, Dr. Badambakal, going back again to this ICC, just to remind for people, again, not as an expert on ICC or constitutional law expert, but as just a lawyer, as someone who teaches at the UP College of Law, what is your understanding of Duterte withdrawing from the ICC without the concurrence of the Senate? I recently had an interview with some senators on this issue, which people will watch later on. Some of them saying na medyo sketchy din yung nangyari because you want if the Senate had a say in treaty accession, then the Senate maybe should have a say on treaty exit. So even the rejoining of the ICC is a bit complicated and shrouded in that legal uncertainty. What is your understanding of the issue?
Yeah, well, for me, the Duterte administration basically took advantage of a gap in the law, essentially, no? Because the Constitution didn't explicitly mention anything about exiting from treaties, no? Or withdrawing from treaties, despite the fact that they were concurred in by the Senate. And well, I guess unfortunately, the court basically also agreed, no? And so that makes the process of returning to it probably even harder, because now we're going to have to we may have to go through another concurrence process for something that should have already been done, no? Or that was already done before. And so there's going to be a new debate, a new round of debates and discussions, no? And if the Senate is either polarized, or if the Senate doesn't see far enough and doesn't see that this transcends the domestic politics of administrations, no? And it's something that is a concern of the nation as a whole, no? And therefore should be beyond the domestic politics and party politics, no? Then we might end up in a situation where we're unable to go back, no? To that particular place.
Dr. Bakal, I mean, Prof, I want to push you on this, Jay, actually, no, is because you dealt with the Senate, you dealt with Senators Robin Hood Padilla. We know for a fact that some of the senators, at least two of them themselves, could be on the ICC list and potentially face warrants of arrest. So considering that, not an insignificant number of senators may be more sympathetic to the position of the Duterte camp, some of them have their own neck in this game or skin in this game. I think it's quite fanciful to expect the Senate to be, I don't know, professional or look at the national. But parang nagugulan ako, Jay, dito, no? I mean, in a sense na parang andali lang makalabas ang Pilipinas nung panahon ni Digong. Pero ngayon, yung pagbabalik natin, biglang ang daming veto players. Why not, if it were so easy for Duterte to get it out, then it should be up to Marcos himself to decide it. Kasi for sure, kung bababa ito sa Senado, yung mga pro-DDS, yung mga sangkot sa drug war ni Digong, they're gonna fight, till the end of times, diba? So, ang gulo na itong situation na to.
Well, again, no, it's a simple case of us not having had any prior experiences of this kind, no? Walang precedent yung withdrawal, no? Walang precedent yung rejoining, no? So, and because of that, no, the law is not clear on that, and therefore it will be debatable. And the fact now that you have actual senators who might be on trial for that, syempre that adds to the complexity.
Di umano'y, Jay, di umano'y na pro-DDS. Let's just be clear.
Di umano. Okay. who might be on trial.
Yeah. You're being too polite again. I mean, okay, just a side note. Just to remind everyone, what was your back and forth with Senator Robin Hood Padilla? I mean, how, kasi yung mga nanonood, naiinis na sila, pero ikaw, relax ka lang Prof. Bakal. I mean, is it the professor in you, or is it the bato at bakal in you? I mean, what's going on there?
Well, I had the advantage of a mute button on my for the mic.
Mute na lang.
And also, I mean, I knew that, I was on the screen. So, di ang laki-laki probably nung screen doon sa Senate Hall, any little twitch, kitang-kita. So, I have to restrain myself. But, you also have to, I mean, it's part of the training. Sometimes you just really have to have the patience to let a lot of bull go.
Poker face na poker face. Like, pag ako yan, napikon siguro ako or sumagot sir, baka naman gusto mo mag-research. Research kayo dyan. But I have a lot of Respect for your patience, Jay. Ako, pasensyosa ako, pero spicy din ako. Bardagul. Ikaw talagang bait-bait mo talaga kay Senator Robin Hood. So I really... do you have an advice for other experts who will be soon invited siguro sa Senado?
Ah, ano nga yung mantra ni Poe sa inner peace.
Inner peace, ayan, bear and forbear. Medyo stoic na tayo. Now, balikan natin itong topic na to. Sorry, Jay, this is how I do it, right? I always put some dark humor into conversation because, of course, these are very technical, these are very high-stakes issues. So kung walang humor, baka ma-board yung mga followers natin. But I think they also understand na there's some element of seriousness in the things we're saying. Pero di umano'y pro-DDS or di umano'y medyo sangkot dito sa ICC na yan, just to be fair about this. Don't worry, Jay, I'm not gonna ask you about the Maricel Soriano PD, yung mga leaks na Marites. Don't worry about it. Now, balikan natin etong issue na ito. Do you think, is it conceivable na the Philippines can get international sympathy on the West Philippine Sea issue if it doesn't come clean on the ICC issue? The reason I'm saying this is because we had Justice Carpio earlier in our podcast, and he was suggesting that actually the next move should be additional arbitration cases to resolve the status of Scarborough Shoal. I had an interview also with Senator Antonio Trillanes, whose position is, well, no one is stopping us from going back to Scarborough Shoal because technically speaking, no one is in complete control of the shoal. There's a kind of a Chinese presence there or in